Welcome.
All right.
Carlo, can you pronounce your last name for me, please?
Giardinetti.
See, that was fantastic. Okay.
Little pretty gardens.
So we're going to be talking about learning organizations of the 21st century. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm just going to let you get on with it.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you here. I will straight away get into the presentation like some of my predecessors here on stage. If you are interested to know more about my background, what I do, there's LinkedIn, there's the bio on the program, so feel free to access that. I am here because I like to share what I've been learning in the past 5 years in the space of trying to design and research the learning organizations. So I had the privilege to collaborate with some researchers at Harvard, as well as in Switzerland, the Business School Lausanne and the Franklin University. And also, I had a crazy, great, exciting time of my life where I worked for 3 years in a completely self-organized organization, where we removed the hierarchy and we used a system called holacracy. And we have full empowered everybody, and we used incredibly interesting new and novel tools to learn and advance our organization through innovation and engagement. So the mix of research with my colleagues at Harvard, the mix of my experience led to a number of interesting learning that I believe can be useful for the audience today. So learning number one, organization learn through two connected dimensions. This is nothing new for anybody, but I think what is new is that too often we don't understand the value added of building this infinite harmony where people, individuals, put an important investment and understanding that they have themselves to grow, and then organization benefit from that investment and grow as a collective. So there is the I dimension and the we dimension. Those companies and individuals that find that harmony in an infinite way, they keep thriving. So when we hear what matters is the organization, if somebody want to go or come, matters, not matter, or when you hear somebody, people are the most important thing, my answer is, well, actually, the dance is the most important thing. One feeds the others, and that's why we have to constantly think of improving our organization by improving our people by improving our organization. Learning number two, learning dynamics are different. I suspect I might have won the chocolate box that the gentleman from PwC offered earlier about can we have a different term for soft skills. I dropped that term a long time ago, and for me, we have to go back here a little bit into understanding, think of ourselves as learning development people, a little bit like, or HR, a little bit like a doctor. Go back to proper diagnosis, okay? What is that you need? You need somebody to acquire new knowledge, new skills, new attitudes, or a new mindset. These are very different things. You can think of it, yesterday we discussed about, we would like managers to become great listeners. Okay, so new knowledge, it means, do you know what a great listener means? Okay? It goes as far as that. You can give an article, a video, a micro-learning, what a great listener is. That's what you do here. New skill is, do you know, can you be a good listener? Can you listen? So let's try it. I speak, you listen. So you practice that skill. Can you listen? Yes. New attitude is, do you listen? So have you started to listen? Or as usual, when your husband or your wife, depending on, or your colleague talk to you, your old habits kicks in back, and you become defensive, and you become, you want to speak immediately, interrupt somebody. So that's the difference between, yes, I know how to listen, and do I actually do it? And finally, a new mindset, are you a listener? Do you believe that a business world with more listeners would be a better world? That's a different paradigm, because probably until yesterday, as a manager, you were thinking that the best you could do is tell people what to do. That's how you've been rewarded until yesterday. And today, you are somehow asked to embrace this new paradigm where the best managers, the best leaders are the ones who listen, not the ones who tell. So if you want to go for anything, you need to understand what the challenge is. Down here at the knowledge and the skills is what we call a technical challenge. As complex as it can be, you can think of it as piloting an airplane. So it's very complex, but it's linear. We understand that challenge. It's 100 steps from 1 to 100, and then you go practice, and you will pretty easily acquire, at some point, through the hurdle of going through those different skills. But when it gets to attitude and mindset, that's what we call an adaptive challenge, which means the learning is not linear. It's not the same for everybody. It's complex. It has to do with unlearning before learning, and it's an evolving learning. So here, my lesson that I learned is, before you ask somebody to embrace a new mindset or a new behavior, be gentle with your expectations. Don't think that all of a sudden we have these soft skills. You put it in the soft skills, and you treat the soft skills like any other skill. Those, most of them, require a big step, leap forward in terms of building new behavior and sometimes embracing a new paradigm. Working in what we call a learning organization presents an adaptive challenge, what I just said now, for which most people aren't ready. It's not only a matter of time engaging in those adaptive challenges, it also has to do with I think this one is, I'm taking you back to your earlier studies, right? The old, good Maslow pyramid. But Maslow used to tell us that actually, up here in what we call the self-actualization stage, there used to be anything between 1% and 3% of the population. Before then, there's all the rest. Meaning that when we ask people to learn, unlearn, embrace the VUCA word, complexity, ambiguity, volatility, and all of that, we are actually telling them, are you one of those guys? And the math doesn't work. If there's only around 3 to 5% of the population that are actually somehow been able, with their needs, to step up and embrace a word in a self-actualized way, it's only 3 to 5%. Why do we have a demand for everybody to do that? I mean, I'm OK with that. Maybe in 20 years, when the robots will take over a lot of things, all the humanity will be required to make those personal development steps forward. Fair enough. But we're not there today yet. And we need to be gentle, again, with our expectation. In a parallel way, there's a great business psychologist, Robert Keegan from Harvard. He came up with this. Until 30 years ago, pretty much we thought that adults would develop until the age of 18, 20. And then finally we learned that actually adult development goes farther and farther. But we also learned that it goes slower. It goes very slowly, but it's possible. And what he told us is, mind you, that 58% of the population is somehow in what we call the socialized mind. Meaning, they see success in the world through conformity. I am my relationships. I follow the rules. That's how I will succeed. So 58% see success in that way. And then we have the VUCA word that actually says you have to continuously embrace change, and you have to continuously embrace paradoxes and polarities and so on. But mind you that most of the people are here. There is a very interesting segment, 35%, that have done that step of saying, look, I totally embrace the value of conformity, but if I disagree because it goes against my values or against my experience or what I know, I will step out and I will voice my concern, which is great. But that is also not enough to embrace the demands that we are putting on our people, again, to deal with the VUCA word. Ideally, these people here, which is only 1% of the population, that are able to embrace those big polarities and paradox, and we call them the self-transforming mind. I hold many identities. I embrace paradox. I can learn and unlearn. I will change, I will grow, I will deal with the crisis as well. Those ones, in today's population, is a very tiny minority. So great to ask, great to put our people and ourselves in that challenge, but let's understand what gets in the way. We are not yet coded to be those superhero guru for the VUCA world. Let's be gentle with each other. Learning number 4, the best structure for a learning organization is a hybrid between hierarchy and self-managing team. I strongly believe in this because I lived and researched extensively both. So hierarchy, if you go out and you look for any literature, you will find everything and the opposite of everything. Hierarchy is great, hierarchy is hopeful, hierarchy works, hierarchy doesn't work. The reality is there is good and bad in hierarchy. There is good and bad in what we call the self-managing organization. Our research showed that hierarchy is particularly good in helping our employees to feel a sense of safety, comfort, and strategy coordination. These are 3 things that self-managing organizations are struggling with. But on the other side, self-managing organizations seem to be particularly good in fostering autonomy, responsiveness, and innovation. Now, most of the time, we've been into a debate that says, oh, we need to depart from here and start moving towards here. That's what we need to do. Well, my argument is that is not correct. I would never drop all the good that hierarchies still have with them. Because ideally, I want both. I don't want to drop this for this. And there are a lot of examples of organizations that have tried to go this way, and all of a sudden they found themselves having trouble with sense of safety of the people, with the strategic coordination. So mind you, you want to have both. So how do I get there? Again, through our research, we started to think, if I want to be able to actually dance and find the harmony between the two, there are 2 particular elements, we call them muscles, that you can think of training, and anybody could do that. So if you think of empowerment and collaboration as 2 muscles that you want to constantly train, you might think that at some point, by doing that, you will gain that fluidity, and instead of being either hierarchical or self-managing organization, you can be both based on your need. You might have a department or a team that goes for self-managing because it needs the autonomy, has an urgency for innovation. You let that emerge, and then you go back into the strategic coordination of your hierarchy until there is another need where you become more fluid. If you can do that using the 2 tools that are empowerment and collaboration, you might be able to design your organization as a hybrid organization. The paradigm that you want to move toward is not about having bosses or not having bosses. You want both the boss and not the boss to think that the new boss is the work. So the paradigm is not thesis, we need more bosses, antithesis, we don't need bosses. Think of it as a synthesis. What if work is the boss? We still have the hierarchy, we still have the self-managing organization, and we try to focus on work is the boss. Final, 5th, this is for me one of the most best kept secrets for organization, for learning organization. This is what Amy Edmondson, the author of all the research from Harvard around psychological safety, says this is the brakes that unless you let the brake go, there's nothing you can really do about learning and innovation. So psychological safety is by far the most important factor to foster innovation, team learning, and success. What is psychological safety? There's a definition of it. It's a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. Team psychological safety creates a shared understanding that candor is expected. Remember that every time you are in a team or in a group, there are group dynamics that kicks in. When we are here, there's that moment where now we will say question, answers. There's economic behavior that will kick in and will make you think, what is the cost of speaking up now, asking a question, or voicing a concern about what I just said? And most of the time, you will go for safety rather than voicing. And this is the indication whether there is psychological safety in this room or not. Google has picked up this, and in the past year has done one of the largest research on team effectiveness and success. They studied hundreds, this study is public on the web, so I invite you to go and read it. They studied hundreds of teams all around the world for a few years. And they wanted to answer the question, what makes a team successful more than others? And there were different criteria that came up, different variables. The overwhelming one variable that showed to prove team success was psychological safety. So if you are able to have that psychological safety, that people will not feel ignorant if they say something wrong. They will not feel intrusive if they ask one question. They will not feel there is a high cost. You have to think of psychological safety as somebody that leaders can set up by lowering the cost of speaking up and actually hiring the cost of silence. Finally, when it comes to psychological safety and performance, I love this 2x2. It comes from the latest book from Amy, The Fearless Organization. I suggest that to anybody. Having psychological safety doesn't mean that you have to lower your standards. It's not that because we have psychological safety now, we are all nice with each other and we don't challenge each other. Quite the opposite. The learning organization is up here. In the past, we had a lot of organization here having good, high psychological safety. People were feeling good at work, but the market was not so fierce. We didn't need to stretch so much our standards. And what is definitely you don't want to be here, the low psychological safety and the low standard. This is where you go to work just to get your salary. You can't wait to go and maybe say something wrong about it in the corridor. And what worries me a lot is that more and more companies are falling into this zone. They are asking their employers and to themselves to hire the standards, go for the moon, but they are not investing in psychological safety. And people are feeling their anxiety inside their organization. The learning organization is here. Is the one where voice is welcome, is dealt with, mistakes are taken as opportunities to learn, innovation is happening, and that's because people feel safe in speaking up and bringing their voice. If you want to become the learning organization, give voice to your people. Thank you.
Fascinating. So, I don't know if we have any questions. Oh, there's actually one on there now. Okay, I'll let you take it. Perfect.
Can we actually be gentle in a fast-changing organizational environment? I can tell you, you can be brutal, or you can, or if you want, but you won't succeed. So I can tell you, what I told you here is how we react as humans. So 2 years down the line, be brutal, and 2 years down the line, let's have another conversation. That's my answer. So we need to understand what gets in the way of all this change and all of this, and that's human. And unless you have that magic power that you can get through the human needs and the human personal development, which I don't think, but if you do, I promise you more than a box of chocolate. Otherwise, be gentle. Review your expectations. It's a very good question. We found out that focusing on empowerment and collaboration, where there are a lot of tools to foster empowerment and to foster collaboration, you can get there. Actually, you can start designing that you can accelerate on the collaborative tools that you have in your organization. You can accelerate on the empowerment tools that you have. And that mix, and then you can decelerate when it's needed as well. That mix is actually providing you enough to go into that hybrid space. Yeah? Yeah, sure. If we come to empowerment, for example. So management by consent. So you think of yourself as a leader, that normally you would tell the people either what to do, how to do it. Perhaps you tell them just what to do and not how to do it. That's one way already to go into empowerment. But think of yourself as a manager as the final safety check for your people, meaning you empower them to do, but the way you act is a final safety check. So when people come to you, they come to you for your wisdom, for your experience, to check, is it safe enough to try this? That's the only question you should answer, instead of saying, oh, no, you have to make it yellow, blue, red, and because I think it's better. They probably know better than you. So resist that temptation to always have a better idea than your people, and rather stay and use management by consent and say, OK, that's my role, is actually to check, is it safe enough? And that's just one to say in terms of empowerment. There's probably many, many more.
Thank you so much.
Sure,
that was
thank you.
great reflections about psychological safety.